You need your wig powdered. You need a message carried. You need a leech applied, or you need help in matters of love. Figaro is your guy. He is the factotum, the guy who gets things done. As he says, he is the busiest man in all Seville. Here is baritone Christopher Kenny with Christopher Kelzer at the piano, the Largo al Factotum, the entrance of the Barber of Seville.
Bravo Figaro, bravo, bravissimo, bravo. Fortunatissimo per verità, bravo. Fortunatissimo per verità. Fortunatissimo per verità. La 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 la. Pronto va tutto, la notte e il giorno, se ridi in tono, in giro sta, il cucagno per una biena, vita più nobile non si dà. Raseri e pettini, lanciati il forbici, al mio comando tutto qui sta. Raseri e forbici, raseri e pettini, al mio comando tutto qui sta. Fe la risorsa, poi del mestiere, con la donnetta, col cavaliere, con la donnetta, tra la 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 la, col cavaliere, tra la 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 la, che bel vivere, che bel piacere, che bel piacere per un barbiere di qualità, di qualità. Tutti mi chiedono, tutti mi vogliono, donne e ragazzi, vecchie fanciulle, quella parrucca, presso la barba, quella sanguigna, presso il biglietto, tutti mi chiedono, tutti mi vogliono, tutti mi chiedono, tutti mi vogliono, quella parrucca, presso la barba, presso il biglietto. Ehi! Figaro, 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 Figaro. Ahimè, ahimè, che furia, ahimè, che folla, uno alla volta, per carità, per carità, per carità, uno alla volta, uno alla volta, uno alla volta, per carità. Figaro, son qua. Figaro! Son qua, Figaro qua, Figaro là, Figaro qua, Figaro là, Figaro su, Figaro giù, Figaro su, Figaro giù, pronto prontissimo, son come il fulmine, sono vecchiato nella città, nella città, nella città, nella città, nella città. Bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, bravo Figaro, bravo bravissimo, a te vatuna, a te vatuna, a te vatuna, non magari la 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 la, a te vatuna, a te vatuna, a te vatuna, non magari sono il factotum della città, sono il factotum
Now, all those skills are going to come in handy because one of Figaro's former employers, the Count Almaviva, has shown up in Seville, and he needs Figaro's help because he's in love. He has fallen in love with a girl named Rosina, who he saw while he was out walking in Madrid. The problem is that Rosina has a guardian, the jealous old Dr. Bartolo, and Bartolo wants to marry her himself, and so he keeps her locked up. And this is a further complication. The Count doesn't want to be loved because he's a Count. He wants to be loved for himself, so he hasn't told anybody who he really is. He's masquerading as a poor student named Lindoro. He runs into Figaro in front of Rosina's balcony where he has been serenading her. And Figaro agrees to help him get to Rosina for a price. Because, as Figaro says, the one thing that really sparks his imagination is gold. Here to sing the duet, All'idea di quel metallo, at the very idea of that metal, as it translates. As Count Almaviva, please welcome tenor Arnold Geiss. Chris Kenny is back as Figaro. At the piano, Chris Kelzer.
Oh cielo, nella stanza con il dir che qualcuno è entrato sia, ella si è ritirata. Ah, cospettate, io già deliro, avvampo, ora di costo vederla io voglio parlarne. Ma tu mi devi aiutare. Che furia! Sì, ma io farò. Da bravo! Entroggivo che tu mi introduca in quella casa. Dimmi, come farai? Via, del tuo spirito vediam qualche prodezza. Del mio spirito, bene, vedrò mai in oggi. E via, chi intende? Ma no, non dubitar, di tue fatiche largo compenso avrai. D'aver parola, dunque oro a discrezione, oro a bizzeffe. Animo, via, son pronto. Ah, non sapete i simpatici effetti prodigiosi che era pagare il mio signore Lindoro produce in me la dolce idea dell'oro. All'idea di quel metallo portentoso, onnipossente, un vulcano la mia mente già comincia a diventarsi. All'idea di quel metallo, un vulcano la mia mente incomincia a diventarsi. Sì, all'idea di quel metallo, un vulcano la mia mente incomincia a diventar, un vulcano incomincia a diventar. Su vediam di quel metallo qualche effetto sorprendente del vulcano della tua mente, qualche mostro singolar, sì, del vulcano della tua moto, qualche mostro singolar, sì, del vulcano della tua mente, qualche mostro singolar, sì, singolar, qualche mostro singolar. Voi dovreste travestirvi, per esempio, da soldato. Sì, signore. Da soldato. E che si fa? Oggi arriva un reggimento. Sì, è mio amico colonnello. Ah, benon. E poi? Aspetto. Dell'orologio col biglietto. Quella porta s'aprirà. Che ne dite, mio signore? un'altra idea, veda loro cosa fa. Ubriaco, sì, ubriaco, mio signor si fingerà. Ubriaco, sì, signore. Ubriaco, ma perché? Ma perché? Ma perché? Perché d'un che poco in sé, che dal vino casca già, il tutor, credete a me, il tutor si fiderà. Il tutor, credete a me, il tutor si fiderà. Che invenzione, che invenzione, che invenzione, che invenzione, che invenzione prelibata, che invenzione, che invenzione prelibata, brava, 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 bravo, in verità, sì, sì, che invenzione prelibata, brava, brava, bella, 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 in verità, che invenzione bella, brava, in verità, che invenzione bella, brava, in verità. All'opera andiamo da Bravano. Oh, il meglio mi scordavo. Dimmi un po' la tua bottega per trovarti dove sta. La bottega non si sbaglia, guarda bene, eccola là. Numero 15, a mano a manca, 4 gradini, facciata bianca, 5 parrucche nella vetrina, sopra un cattello, un po' matatina, mostra l'azzurro alla moderna, ve per insegna una lanterna, là senza fallo mi troverà, 5 parrucche nella vetrina, sopra un cattello, un po' matatina, mostra l'azzurro alla moderna, ve per insegna una lanterna, là senza fallo, là senza fallo, là senza fallo mi troverà. 5 parrucche, una lanterna, là senza fallo mi troverà. Ho ben capito, or vada presto, tu guarda bene, io penso al resto, di te mi fido, cosa l'attendo, mio caro Figaro, intendo, porterò meco, la borsa piena, sì quel che vuoi, ma il resto poi, oh non si dubiti che bene andrà, sì bene che d'amore la fiamma io sento, sia di giubilo e di contento, d'ardore solito quest'alma accende, e di me stesso maggior mi fa. Che d'amore la fiamma io sento, sia di giubilo e di contento, eccolo qua, Ardore insolito, quest'alma accende, d'ardore insolito, e di me stesso, quest'alma accende, e di me stesso, maggior mi fa, giovane l'oro, e di me stesso, maggior mi fa, e di me stesso, maggior mi fa, e di me stesso, maggior mi fa, maggior mi fa, maggior mi fa, maggior mi fa.
So what about Rosina, the girl that the Count has come to Seville in search of? She is very interested in this young student named Lindoro that has been serenading her under her balcony. In fact, she has fallen very much in love. And she is a perfect match because she is every bit as clever as Almaviva or Figaro. And they're going to need all three of their wiles to get the Count and Rosina together at the end. Rosina, in her entrance, talks about the serenade that she just heard. And she says that the words that she heard underneath her balcony have lodged in her heart. And she swears that Lindoro will be hers. And to get that, she is willing to play any number of tricks. Here's her aria. It's called Una voce poco fa, a voice a little while ago. And to sing it, mezzo-soprano Allegra di Vita.
Cento trappole prima di cedere, farò giocar e 100 trappole prima di cedere. E 100 trappole farò giocar, e 100 trappole farò giocar, e 100 trappole farò giocar, sì.
As you might guess, the course of true love does not run smooth. They have to use their wits to outwit not only the wily Dr. Bartolo, but the conniving music teacher Don Basilio and the local police force. But they manage, finally, to sneak the Count up a ladder to Rosina's balcony and into her bedroom, and they're going to elope. But before they elope, the Count decides to reveal his secret. He tells Rosina that, in fact, he is not a poor student, Lindoro. He is the Count of Almaviva, and he wants to marry her. And she is overwhelmed and overjoyed. And the two lovers spend a great deal of time being overjoyed. Meanwhile, Figaro is watching the clock and wondering if they're ever going to make it out of this bedroom on time. To sing the trio Zitti Zitti Piano Piano, please welcome back Allegra De Vita, Chris Kenny, and Arnold Geiss.
Mio signor, non più, ben mio, il per nome di mia sposa, nido mio t'attende già. Il per nome sì. Di tua sposa, oh, qual gioia al cor mi dà. Sei contenta? Oh, mio signore, oh, mio signore. Dolce avventurato, e fai paghi i miei desideri. Dolce avventurato, e fai paghi balcone, adesso andiamo via di qua. Zitti, zitti, piano, piano, non facciamo confusione. Per la scala del balcone, adesso andiamo via di qua.
Zitti, zitti, piano, piano, non facciamo confusione. Alla scala del balcone, adesso andiamo via di qua. Alla scala del balcone, presto andiamo via di qua. Piano, piano, per la scala del balcone, presto andiamo via di qua.
Zitti, zitti, piano, piano, non facciamo
confusione.
Per la scala del balcone,
Presto andiamo via di qua. Per la scala del balcone, presto andiamo via di qua. Piano, piano, per la scala del balcone, presto andiamo via di qua. Zitti, zitti, piano, piano, zitti, zitti, piano, piano, per la scala del balcone, presto andiamo via di qua. Zitti, zitti, piano, piano, zitti, zitti, piano, piano, per la scala del balcone, presto andiamo via di qua. Presto andiamo via di qua, via di qua, via di qua, via di qua, via di qua.
The Barber of Seville opens in the Opera House just behind us on April 28th and closes May 19th. It stars Isabel Leonard as Rosina with Taylor Staton as Count Almaviva and Andrei Zhilikovsky as the Barber Figaro. And there's a special young artist performance on May the 17th where you can see these same artists on stage with the orchestra doing the full version of the Barber of Seville. Let's turn now to Verdi's epic Don Carlo. And you can call it an epic because really it manages to encompass a whole world, from the secrets of a single family to the clashes for power inside a palace, to the clashes of nations. And it can do this because the family in question is the royal family of Spain. And the piece examines how they pay a terrible price in private for the power they wield in the world. The royal family in question is the family of Philip II, the 16th century king of Spain. And the nucleus of their problems have to do with the tradition of dynastic marriage. You know that kings often married not for love, but to gain territory and to make alliances. In this case, King Philip had arranged a marriage for his son, Don Carlos, with the Princess of France, Elizabeth of Valois. But before they could be married, Philip's own wife died, and he decided to marry the princess himself, leaving Carlos heartbroken and bitter and rebellious, and Elizabeth heartbroken and stoic. And Philip himself realizes that the two young people who had fallen in love when they were betrothed have never really gotten over it. And he is racked with suspicion. He feels that even in the circle of his own family, he is not safe. And he laments that God has not given him with the crown the power to see into men's hearts and to know who is betraying him. He does it in a great monologue in the beginning of the third act called Ella Jamai Mamo, which means she never loved me. And here to sing it is bass Timothy Bruno. At the piano now, Paul Jarsky.
chiuso a me, amor per me non ha, per me non io la rivedo ancor, contemplar trista in volto, il mio crin bianco, il dì che qui di Francia venne. Ove son, quedo per preso a finir, aurora imbianca il mio feron, già spunta il dì, passar fecco i miei giorni lenti, il sono Dio, sparita miei occhi Dormiro sol nel manto mio regal, quando la mia giornata è giunta sera. Dormiro sol sotto la volta nera, dormiro sotto la volta nera, l'annellavello delle scurial. Se il serto regala me tese il poter di leggere nei cor che io posso vener. Ah, se il serto regal a me desse il poter di leggere nei cor che Dio sol può vener. Se dorme il prince, fegli al traditore, il serto perde il re, il consorte l'onore. Dormiro sol nel manto mio regal, quando la mia giornata è giunta sera. Dormiro sol sotto la volta nera, nell'avvello delle scuriae. Se il certo leal avessi il poter di leggere nei cor, ella giammai m'amò. No, quel cor chiuso è a me, per me non ha. Amor per me non ha.
As private trials rock Philip's world, so do public ones. Philip rules a great empire, not just Spain, but it stretches all the way to South America and northward from Spain into the Low Countries, Belgium and Holland. And in Philip's time, a revolt breaks out in Flanders, in modern-day Belgium. The revolt is partly political, but it's intensified because it's also religious. Spain is a staunchly Catholic country. The Protestant rebels in Flanders are a threat not only to Spain's power, but to her faith. And so Philip sends armies to Flanders and represses the revolt brutally. This problem comes home to roost in Philip's own family because his son, Don Carlos, and Carlos's best friend, the Marquis of Posa, or Rodrigo, take up the Flemish cause, and they plead to the king to have mercy on Flanders. And this, in turn, puts Carlos and his friend Rodrigo in the sights of the Inquisition. So much so that Carlos's life is in danger. And Rodrigo, knowing that that is the case, decides to lay down his own life, to take all the incriminating papers about Flanders away from Carlos and to sacrifice himself so that Carlos may live. He's killed by an agent of the king on behalf of the Inquisition. And as he dies, he tells Carlos that he's happy to do this. He's happy to give his own life so that Carlos may one day become a ruler who will save the Flemish people. The aria is called O Carlo Ascolta. Here to sing Rodrigo's death scene from Don Carlo is baritone Christopher Kenny. Once again at the piano is Paul Jarsky.
regnare tutto fessi, ed io morir per te. Io morro, ma lieto in cuore, che potei così serbar alla Spagna un salvatore di Milan. Ti scordar, la terra mi manca, la mano a me, salva la Fiandra. Carlo, addio, ahimè.
Don Carlo opens in the Opera House on March 3rd. It features a star-studded cast including Eric Owens, Leah Crocetto, Quinn Kelsey, Jamie Barton, and Russell Thomas as Don Carlo. And it's conducted by our music director, Philippe Auguin. Let's turn now finally to Bernstein's Candide. You may know this is the 100th anniversary this year of Leonard Bernstein's birth, so it's appropriate that we finish our season with his sparkling operetta Candide, based on the Voltaire novel of the same name. Candide is a good-hearted, innocent young man. He's the illegitimate son of the Westphalian Baron Thunder ten Tronckh. And he wanders the world and is beset by every sort of evil, war and natural disaster and every kind of human mischief. And through it all, he struggles to maintain his faith in the principle that his tutor, Dr. Pangloss, once taught him, that everything is for the best, and this is the best of all possible worlds. He starts out pretty well, actually. He's in the castle of the Baron Thunder ten Tronckh. He's actually planning to marry the Baron's daughter, Cunegonde. They're both excited about getting married. They have very different ideas of what marriage will be, as you will see shortly. Here's the duet they sing called "Oh Happy We" as Candide, tenored Arnold Geiss. And please welcome as Cunegonde, soprano Megan Sill. Back at the piano is Chris Kelzer.
When we feel we can afford it, we'll build a modest little farm.
We'll buy a yacht and live aboard it, clothing in luxury and stylish charm.
Cows and chickens,
Social whirls,
peas and cabbage,
ropes of pearls.
Soon there'll be little ones beside us. We'll have a sweet Westphalian home.
Somehow we'll grow as rich as Midas. We'll live in Paris when we're not in Rome.
Smiling babies,
Marble halls,
Sunday picnics,
costume balls. Oh, outer rolls of silk and satin be chic. I'll have all that I desire.
Pangloss will tutor us in Latin and Greek while we sit before the fire.
Glowing rubies,
Glowing logs,
faithful servants.
faithful dogs.
We'll round the world enjoying high life. All bubbly pink champagne and gold.
We'll lead a rustic and a shy life, feeding the pigs and sweetly growing old.
Breast of peacock,
Apple pie,
I love marriage.
so do I.
This marriage is sadly not fated to take place because shortly after they sing this duet, the Baron's castle is ransacked by the armies of a neighboring province. Cunegonde is carried away. Candide is also carried away. And just to give you a taste of the kinds of things he goes through, he ends up in Lisbon just as he arrives. There's the Lisbon earthquake, which kills 30,000 people, after which he gets blamed for it and is almost burned to death by the Inquisition. He escapes, he goes to Paris, he finds Cunegonde, who has been living as the mistress of an archbishop. He accidentally kills the archbishop. Then he has to flee to the New World. When he gets to Uruguay, to Montevideo, troubles are not over, because the governor of Montevideo, a cheerful and cynical man, has set his eye on Cunegonde and makes her a somewhat sordid proposition, as you're about to hear. As the governor will hear Alex McKissick, tenor, back as Cunegonde, Megan Sill.
Poets have said love is undying, my love. Don't be misled, they were all lying, my love. Love's on the wing, but now on the hovers. Let us be lovers, one soon recovers, my love. Soon the fever's fled, for love's a transient blessing. Just a week in bed, and we'll be convalescing. Why talk of mortals when springtime is flying? Why end in quarrels, reproaches, and sighing, crying for love, my love?
I cannot entertain your shocking proposition. How would I regain my virginal condition? I am so behind that before you may beg me, you must assure me that first you will wed me, wed me.
Well then, since you're so pure, I shall betroth you, my love. Though I feel sure I'll come to loathe you, my love, still for the thrill I'm perfectly willing. For if we must wed before we may bed, then come let us wed, my love.
You can hear that the glories of Candide are not only the brilliant music by Leonard Bernstein, but also some of the wittiest lyrics ever penned for the American musical. Lyrics by people like John Latouche and Dorothy Parker and Bernstein himself and Stephen Sondheim. And speaking of that, as part of the Kennedy Center's Bernstein celebration, the NSO, just in the concert hall back there, will be presenting West Side Story in concert next week, featuring some of the Domingo Cafritz young artists in the ensemble. Candide itself opens on May 5th. It runs to May 26th. It stars Alex Schrader as Candide and Catherine Lewick as Cunegonde, and Denise Graves in appearance as the old lady who takes Cunegonde under her wing. It's conducted by Nicole Paymont. You may ask, how can Candide possibly keep his optimism in the face of all these trials? And the answer is early training. In fact, his tutor, Dr. Pangloss, proved to him that this is the best of all possible worlds in the ensemble you're about to hear. And he proves it so resoundingly that he finishes it, as you may have been taught to in geometry class, with a Latin flourish. Quod erat demonstrandum QED. As Dr. Pangloss will have bass Timothy Bruno, and also welcome to the stage mezzo-soprano Eliza Bonet, along with Megan Sill and Christopher Canny and Arnold Geiss. At the piano, Chris Kelzer hears the best of all possible worlds from Candide by Leonard Bernstein.
Lesson 11.
Paragraph 2, Axiom 7.
Once one dismisses the rest of all possible worlds, one finds that this is the best of all possible worlds.
Once one dismisses the rest of all possible worlds, one finds that this is the best of all possible worlds.
Pray classify pigeons and camels.
Pigeons can fly.
Camels are mammals.
There is a reason for everything under the sun.
There is a season for everything under the sun. Objection! What about snakes?
Snakes. 'Twas snake that tempted Mother Eve. Because of snake we now believe that though depraved we can be saved from hellfire and damnation.
Because of snake's temptation.
If snake had not seduced a lot and primed us for salvation, Jehovah could not pardon all the sins that we call cardinal, involving bed and bottle.
Now on to Aristotle.
Mankind is one, all men are brothers.
As you have done, do unto others.
It's understood in this best of all possible worlds.
Souls for the good in this rest of all possible worlds. Objection! What about war?
War. Though war may seem a bloody curse, it is a blessing in reverse. When cannon roar, both rich and poor by danger are united.
Till every wrong is righted.
Philosophers make evidence the point that I have cited. 'Tis war makes equal, as it were, the noble and the commoner. Thus war improves relations.
Now on to conjugations.
Amo, amas, amat, amamus.
Amo, amas, amat, amamus.
Proving that this is the best of all possible worlds.
With love and kisses, the best of all possible worlds.
Cordelanemus ranum.